Hello there and welcome to All 24 News World News program coming to you live from Algiers. I'm your host Islam Said, and up next are the top stories. Hamas announces the martyrdom of its leader Yahya Sinwar, confirms its commitment to resist until the expulsion of all the occupation from Palestine. It also set the end of aggression as a condition for releasing the occupation prisoners. The Palestinian resistance factions emphasize that Sinwar's martyrdom will not break the will of their fight against the Zionist occupation. Also in our news, 62 martyrs in 4 Zionist massacres in Gaza Strip within 24 hours, and the UN calls the forced displacement of Palestinians from northern Gaza Strip a full-fledged war crime. Hello again and welcome back to the details. Hamas announced the death of its leader Yahya Sinwar during clashes with Zionist forces in Tel Sultan, Rafah in southern Gaza Strip. Khalil al-Hayya, head of Hamas in Gaza, confirmed in a video today that Sinwar was killed while fighting on the front lines, having remained active across battlefronts from the start of Al-Aqsa flood until his death.
ننعى القائد الكبير الأخ المجاهد الشهيد يحيى السنوار أبو إبراهيم.
We mourn the great leader, our fighter and brother, Martyr Yahya Sinwar Abu Ibrahim, Hamas's political bureau chief and the leader of the Al-Aqsa flood battle, who was killed as a hero, a martyr, fighting and not retreating. He was killed while fighting, carrying his weapon and fighting the occupation army till the last moment of his life. He was in the front line, moving from various fighting places, standing firm on the proud land of Gaza.
ثابتا على أرض غزة العزة.
Al-Hayya emphasized that Hamas will persist in its resistance until the Palestinian people's demands are met and a state of Palestine with Al-Quds as its capital is established. He stated that the blood of martyrs and leaders serves as the driving force for resilience and perseverance.
إننا نؤكد أن هذه الدماء ستظل توقد لنا الطريق.
We are sure that this blood will lighten our path and increase our motivation for steadfastness and firmness. Hamas movement will continue on the footsteps of the founding leaders and martyrs until we reach our people's ambition of full liberation, return to our lands and the establishment of our Palestinian state on all the Palestinians' land, with Al-Quds as its capital, God willing, and will turn into a curse on the occupiers who are now living on this land.
والوفاء لدمائهم وتضحياتهم.
Al-Hayya stressed that the return of the occupation prisoners is contingent upon stopping the aggression on Gaza and the full withdrawal of the occupation forces.
Those prisoners will not return to you until the total end of aggression on our people in Gaza and the full withdrawal from it and the release of our brave prisoners from the occupation jails. We will continue in the footsteps of Hamas.
The Qassam brigades mourned Yahya Sinwar, who died in clashes with occupation forces in Rafah. They praised his role in uniting the resistance fronts and noted that his leadership marked a key shift in their military and political path, culminating in the Aqsa flood.
It is a source of pride for our movement to present leaders before soldiers and for its leaders to lead the convoy of martyrs of our people who gave their lives and blood for the sake of God and on the path of liberating Palestine. The path of our leader Abu Ibrahim was an honorable path. He had an important role in unifying the resistance fronts on the path of Al-Quds. Then he headed the movement in Gaza, so that the period of his leadership constituted a qualitative shift in its advocacy, political and military path that culminated in an Aqsa flood.
The Qassam brigades affirmed their commitment to resistance until Palestinians or Palestine is liberated and the last Zionist is expelled, acknowledging that the cost of freedom will be very high.
when the resistance factions with Hamas at their core decided to enter this great battle. They knew that the price of liberation was very high, and that all peoples had paid before they were liberated from their occupiers. Our jihad will not stop until Palestine is liberated, the last Zionist is expelled from it, and all our legitimate rights are restored.
The Al-Qassam brigades vowed that the assassination of the leaders will not force a retreat, but will intensify their efforts until the Palestinian people's goals are achieved.
This criminal enemy is delusional if it thinks that by assassinating the great leaders of the resistance, such as Sinwar, Haniya, Nasrallah, Al-Arudi, and others, it can extinguish the flame of resistance or push it to retreat. Rather, it will continue and escalate until the legitimate goals of our people are achieved.
Hamas leader Mahmoud al-Mordawi, in a statement to All 24 News, highlighted that the occupation will only end through armed struggle and significant sacrifices, adding that the martyrdom of Yahya Sinwar will strengthen the Palestinians.
استشهاد القائد الكبير أبو إبراهيم السنواري يزيدنا قوة.
The martyrdom of the great leader Yahya Sinwar gives us more strength and conviction that this occupation will not end without armed resistance and sacrifices, starting from the leadership and soldiers, and this is the Palestinian resistance. In addition to the Lebanese resistance, which gave the best of its leaders, the political and military leadership for achieving its goals, and it is able to achieve them as long as it's honest with those who support it, and it will never change, as it is following the path of confirming the goals and aspirations, as there hasn't been any occupied people who did not achieve their liberation. And the best example for that is the Algerian people, who gave millions of martyrs and is now in freedom and defending its sovereignty. Also the Palestinian people who are giving their best to achieve it, and they deserve it.
The Hamas leader stated that the resistance goal aligned with Hamas and the Palestinian leadership, emphasizing that their decisions are based on consensus and unity while remaining committed to all conditions.
فقد هذا الشهيد الكبير أبو إبراهيم السنوار.
Losing this great martyr, Abu Ibrahim al-Sinwar, is undoubtedly effective, but in the same time, it is a push towards insisting on achieving our goals. The leadership under the great martyr, Abu al-Abd Haniya, and before, Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, and also Abu Ibrahim al-Sinwar, is continuing to achieve the goals set by the leadership of Hamas and international and Islamic leaderships. This is a collective decision, and we take battles together, and we go to negotiations together. There are those who see this event as a chance to kill the revolution, but they are delusional, and in the next days they will confirm that they are mistaken.
Palestinian factions asserted that Yahya Sinwar's martyrdom will not extinguish the flame of resistance, but will strengthen their commitment to struggle for Palestinian rights. The Islamic Jihad movement mourned him as a great leader who fought on the front lines, saying that the Palestinian people will remain loyal to his legacy. The Democratic Front emphasized that his martyrdom will unite the Palestinian people in their struggle. The Palestinian National Initiative affirmed that the assassination of leaders will not break the will of the Palestinian people, while the Palestinian Popular Resistance Committees declared that Sinwar's name will be forever linked to the resistance against the Zionist enemy. Yahya Sinwar, the mastermind of the Al-Aqsa flood, left a lasting impact over decades of resistance that shook the foundations of the Zionist entity, the region, and the world. His journey began over 60 years ago in the alleys of Khan Yunis and concluded with his martyrdom in Rafah. Here's Osama Ayadi with the full story.
أنا أقول بأنه أكبر هدية يمكن أن يقدمها العدو والاحتلال لي هو أن يغتالني.
With words of pride and steadfastness, Hamas mourned its leader, Yahya Sinwar, who was martyred during a clash with the occupation forces in Rafah, south of Gaza. The resistance factions, along with the Palestinian people, mourned one of the historical fighters who spent his entire life defending the Palestinian land and its sanctities.
You can kill a revolutionary, but you can never kill the revolution. So the cause, there's no cause in the world that is confined to a single person. People are perishable, but the true cause is always there. It never dies.
The martyrdom of Yahya Sinwar in the view of the resistance, and despite all the pain that it causes, is nothing but a continuation of the caravan of martyrs from the Palestinian leaders and symbols towards reaching the freedom of the country and people.
So, Sinwar is not the only leader of Hamas who has been killed. He's maybe number 5, since the establishment of Hamas. But I'm sure that the Palestinian resistance will go on.
Sinwar remains a distinct figure of the Palestinian resistance, following on the same footsteps of former glorious leaders of the resistance, first of whom was the founder of Hamas movement, Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, then Abdulaziz Rantisi, Jamal Mansour, Saleh Al-Arouri, Ismail Haniyeh, and many others. The Al-Qassam brigades confirmed that assassinating the leaders of the resistance would never force the Palestinian people and the resistance to retreat. Rather, they will continue what Sinwar started with the Al-Aqsa flood, thus thwarting the schemes of the Nazi occupation.
On Friday, Hamas mourned Mahmoud Hamdan, commander of the Sultan battalion in Rafah, was martyred alongside Yahya Sinwar. The movement stated that Hamdan died in clashes with the occupation army in Sultan neighborhood. Hezbollah mourned Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, stating that he bravely opposed the American project and the Zionist occupation, sacrificing his life for that cause. In their statement, Hezbollah reaffirmed support for the Palestinian people who, alongside the resilient Lebanese, face the consequences of the Zionist aggression.
The martyred leader Yahya Sinwar, who took on the mantle of leadership from the martyred commander Ismail Haniyeh, continued the path of resistance, sacrifice, and dedication alongside heroic fighters. He stood firm against the American project and the Zionist occupation, offering his blood until he achieved martyrdom and the highest ranks of dignity and human completeness. We in Hezbollah's leadership, facing the repercussions of the criminal Zionist aggression with our resilient Lebanese people, reaffirm our solidarity with the Palestinian people. We trust in the divine promise of victory for the faithful.
Stay tuned for more updates on Gaza Strip after the break. The Palestinian news agency Wafa reported that at least 30 people have been killed on Friday night committed by the Zionist occupation forces at Jabalia refugee camp in northern Gaza. Quoting medical sources, Wafa news agency added that 64 citizens were killed in the occupation raids on the Gaza Strip since dawn on Friday, 45 of them in Jabalia camp. Zionist occupation forces committed 4 massacres in Gaza Strip, killing 62 Palestinians and injuring 300 in the past 24 hours. The Palestinian Ministry of Health reported a total of 42,500 martyrs and 99,546 injured since the Zionist aggression began on October 7th of last year. The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, called the Israeli occupation army's forced displacement of Palestinians in northern Gaza a war crime. He emphasized that human rights must be central to UN consultations amid recent Middle East developments. Turk also highlighted the alarming findings of the latest UN reports on food security, warning that the risk of famine persists throughout Gaza.
Unfortunately, the reality on the ground shows that aid is not flowing into Gaza. The world cannot allow this to happen. There are serious concerns that the large-scale forced displacement being carried out by the Israeli army in Gaza is not in accordance with international law. The forced displacement of a significant portion of the population in northern Gaza constitutes a war crime.
A United Nations assessment confirmed that approximately 345,000 Palestinians in Gaza will face catastrophic hunger this winter due to reduced aid delivery, warning of famine risk across the Strip. Prepared by UN agencies and NGOs, the assessment highlighted this number compared to the 133,000 currently classified as experiencing catastrophic food insecurity. It noted that the recent decline in aid will severely limit families' ability to access food and essential goods in the coming months. World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus called for the immediate delivery of humanitarian aid to malnourished children in Gaza, requiring urgent treatment. In a post on X platform, he noted that recent assessments show nearly everyone in the Gaza Strip is starving, describing this situation as inhumane.
According to the latest assessments, nearly everyone in Gaza is suffering from extreme hunger, which is inhumane. The World Health Organization calls for immediate access to all humanitarian aid, starting with food and medicine. The children of Gaza are severely malnourished and urgently need treatment. Therefore, we call for a ceasefire, as the best remedy is peace.
Hospitals in Gaza, mainly in the north, are facing a catastrophic crisis, threatening the lives of survivors due to the ongoing siege and relentless aggression. Despite urgent warnings and pleas for aid, the occupation continues its blockade and attacks. Nabil Khazini has more.
In Gaza, where a genocidal war sweeps like a dark side, hospitals is where the last distress call of many is made. With each day passing by, they face unprecedented challenges, limited resources, overwhelmed staff, and an escalating influx of patients in desperate need of care. This is Kamal Adwan Hospital, one of many hospitals in Gaza that have been under occupation siege. This video shows a doctor at Kamal Adwan Hospital walking inside its new natal intensive care unit, inside of which conditions are alarming.
أمام كارثة إنسانية حقيقية بحق هؤلاء الأطفال.
We will face a real humanitarian catastrophe for these children, the doctor says. On Wednesday, Palestinian health officials urged the establishment of a humanitarian corridor to 3 hospitals in northern Gaza, which are on the brink of collapse due to occupation troops cutting off access to the area.
المستشفى الوحيد الذي يخدم الأطفال
The only hospital for pediatrics, gynecology and obstetrics in the north of the Gaza Strip. But now, after a 12-day siege of the Jabalia camp and the north of the Gaza Strip, this hospital suffers a lot of serious injuries. The injuries that require intensive care and specialist doctors, require medicines and appropriate food for these patients so that they can recover and resist the serious injuries caused by the occupation.
As the struggles of hospitals in Gaza continue, the resilience and dedication of healthcare workers shine through the darkness. Their fight is not just for patients, but for the very essence of hope in a besieged land.
The Al-Qassam Brigade's Hamas military wing released footage showing an operation in which they lured Zionist special forces into a previously booby-trapped house near the Saftawi junction west of the Jabalia camp in northern Gaza Strip.
ولا على بالنا، هي مش بعيد عنا يمكن 6-7 متر. احنا اللي نولعهم مش هم اللي يولعوها، احنا اللي نولعهم. جاهزين لهم، نعد ونجهز لهم اصنافا من الموت باذن الله.
United Nations Deputy Spokesperson Farhan Haq reported a rise in settler violence during the olive harvest season in the West Bank, with 32 documented attacks this month. He warned that these attacks threaten the security and livelihoods of Palestinians and highlighted increasing assaults by the occupation forces on farmers, resulting in injuries and the uprooting and theft of hundreds of trees. United Nations Independent International Commission of Inquiry on Crimes in the Occupied Palestinian Territories stated that all states and organizations must work to end the illegal Zionist presence. The commission emphasized that the Israeli occupation is the root cause of the conflict and urged states not to recognize Zionist territorial claims or sovereignty over the occupied territories.
The root cause of the prolonged conflict and cycles of violence is the Israeli occupation. The committee concluded in its report presented to the United Nations General Assembly in 2022, the occupation is in violation of international law, and therefore all states are obligated not to recognize Israel's territorial claims or sovereignty over the occupied Palestinian land. States should not support the continuation of Israel's occupation of Palestinian territory, nor should they recognize Al-Quds as Israel's capital or move their diplomatic representatives to Al-Quds.
About 40,000 Palestinians attended Friday prayers at Al-Aqsa Mosque despite strict military measures by Zionist occupation authorities. Local sources reported that the occupation forces obstructed access through Bab al-Asbat, checked identities, and denied entry to some young men. Many Palestinians from the occupied West Bank were also prevented from reaching Al-Quds, requiring special permits to cross the military checkpoints. Moving on to Lebanon developments, the Health Emergency Operations Center of the Lebanese Ministry of Health reported that the death toll from the Zionist aggression on Lebanon has reached 2,412 martyrs and 11,267 wounded. In a Thursday statement, it noted that recent attacks by occupation forces in southern Lebanon, Nabatiya, Biqa', Baalbek, and Ermel resulted in 45 additional martyrs and 179 injured. Zionist occupation warplanes resumed bombing towns and villages in southern Lebanon for the second time on Friday. The official Lebanese news agency reported that occupation forces targeted the town of Ansar twice on Friday morning and conducted 4 consecutive raids on Sajd in the Iqlim al-Tufah region. Additionally, airstrikes were reported on the towns of the Zarariya and Al-Marwaniya. Hezbollah announced that the resistance has entered a new and escalating phase against the Zionist occupation. Statement from the Islamic Resistance Operations Room reported the destruction of 20 Merkava tanks, 4 military bulldozers, an armored vehicle, and 2 drones. It also noted that the occupation's losses amounted to about 55 dead and more than 500 wounded officers and soldiers.
The Islamic resistance continues to confront the Israeli aggression on Lebanon, inflicting heavy losses on the Israeli enemy's army in both personnel and equipment, including officers and soldiers, across the front lines in southern Lebanon and deep into occupied Palestine. In line with the directives of the resistance leadership, the Islamic Resistance Operations Room announces the transition to a new escalated phase in the confrontation with the Israeli enemy, with the developments and events of the coming days set to reveal further details.
And now we move on to a different matter. Algeria assumed the presidency of the African group in Nairobi as of the last Wednesday, overseeing UN programs, including the UN Environment and Habitat programs. Ambassador Boumediene Mahi succeeded Somali Ambassador Jibril Ibrahim Abdul, emphasizing Algeria's capability to amplify Africa's voice and advocate for a greater representation in UN forums. Moving on to Libya, Stephanie Houri, acting head of the United Nations support mission in Libya, emphasized the vital role of the 5+5 Joint Military Commission in maintaining peace and stability in the country. During a security working group meeting in Sirte, Houri highlighted the urgent need to resolve the political impasse, to unify state institutions, and allow the Joint Military Commission to fully implement the ceasefire agreement.
I emphasized during the meeting the importance of Libya's sovereignty and territorial integrity and the critical role played by the Joint Military Commission 5+5 in maintaining peace and stability in Libya, as well as fostering an environment conducive to reviving the political process that will lead to elections. I also stressed the urgent need to end the political deadlock, unify state institutions, especially the military and security institutions, and enable the Joint Military Commission to fully implement all provisions of the ceasefire agreement.
And to wrap up on a lighter note, the Algerian Pavilion of the Amman International Book Fair highlights Algeria's cultural diversity and history through a range of titles and activities, making it an important event for Arab publishers and readers. Nabil Khazini reports again.
In the heart of the Jordanian capital, Amman, the 23rd International Book Fair brings together over 400 exhibitors. Algeria is this year's guest of honor, showcasing its rich heritage and contributions.
The opening ceremony was very beautiful, in the presence of the Algerian Culture Minister, Ms. Soraya Moulouji, and in the presence of the Jordanian Culture Minister. We exhibited at the fair beautiful things from books, dresses to Algerian cuisine, all of which were discovered by the Jordanians who visited the fair and thanked us for them.
The Algeria Pavilion at the Amman International Book Fair offers visitors a glimpse into Algeria's rich cultural diversity and history, featuring a selection of titles and engaging cultural activities. The Algerian Pavilion here is a highly anticipated destination for Arab publishers and readers. Choosing Algeria as the guest of honor at the Amman exhibition underscores the shared visions of the two countries on key issues, particularly the Palestinian cause. The exhibition embraces this commitment with the slogan, Al-Quds is the capital of Palestine.
بداية اختيار الجزائر كضيف شرف لمعرض عمان الدولي للكتاب.
First of all, choosing Algeria as guest of honor of Amman International Book Fair provides us with a big cultural dimension and cultural exchange between Jordanian writers and Algerian writers, and also allows us to learn about Algeria's culture.
Amid lively celebrations and enthusiastic crowds, the Amman International Book Fair continues, having established itself as an important cultural event eagerly awaited by Arab readers and publishers.
That brings us to the end of our news program for tonight. Thank you for watching. Until next time, take care.